We usually think of human biology and bacterial biology as two completely, totally separate worlds. It's like us versus them, right? You've got your cells, and then you've got the bacteria that we're constantly trying to wash off our hands or avoid in our food or fight off with medicine. But what if that dividing line is actually just a complete illusion? Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to dive right into a bizarre medical mystery that proves ancient evolutionary history isn't just something you read about in some dusty textbook. It is alive, it is functioning, and it is sometimes causing absolutely unexpected reactions inside your own body right this very second.
To set the stage here, we really need to ask a seemingly impossible question. Specifically, we're looking at a class of drugs known as aminoglycoside antibiotics. Now, these drugs, they are incredibly effective at their job. They're basically engineered to hunt down and stop bacterial protein synthesis by precisely targeting bacterial ribosomes, which is essentially like shutting down the bacteria's internal factories. And most of the time, they do this with just incredible precision. They wipe out the bad bacteria with little to no harm to the human taking them. But here is where the mystery really kicks in. For a tiny fraction of the population, taking these exact same antibiotics leads to a devastating side effect: irreversible sensory neural deafness. So wait, how on earth does a drug that is strictly meant for a bacterial invader permanently damage human hearing?
Well, the answer is this devastating case of biological mistaken identity. On one hand, we have the protein synthesis machinery of pathogenic bacteria. The intended, highly specific target of our antibiotic. But on the other hand, deep inside the inner ear, we have the mitochondria, residing specifically within human cochlear hair cells. And the fascinating, almost unbelievable reality here is that the protein synthesis machinery inside those human mitochondria is dangerously similar to the machinery inside the bacteria. Now, for most of us, there's just enough of a microscopic difference that the antibiotic ignores our cells and only goes after the infection. But for patients carrying specific pathogenic variants in their mitochondrial ribosomal RNA genes, there are these really subtle structural shifts. These tiny, seemingly insignificant changes actually inadvertently increase the mitochondrial RNA's affinity for the drug. The antibiotic literally gets confused. It binds directly to the mitochondria in the ear cells, totally messes up their ability to synthesize protein, and ultimately causes that irreversible deafness.
Just take a second to sit with that concept. The really crucial point here is that this shared vulnerability between a human cell and a bacterial pathogen isn't some random coincidence. It's not just a bizarre fluke of organic chemistry. It is a direct, undeniable result of our mitochondria actually evolving from ancient bacterial ancestors. The antibiotic is targeting your mitochondria because, deep down at a fundamental molecular level, your mitochondria still look, act, and respond remarkably like the bacteria they once were. This rare medical side effect is quite literally an echo of our evolutionary past, just reverberating right into the present. Our human cells are literally harboring ancient bacteria that have simply been repurposed into little energy factories.
So to understand how this whole shebang happened, we've got to look back at a scientific idea that was brilliantly ahead of its time. Picture this. You're a Russian botanist in 1905 named Konstantin Mereschkowski. He noticed these striking physical similarities between chloroplasts in plants and free-living bacteria. And remember, this was long before we had electron microscopes or DNA sequencing. But he boldly speculated that they actually originated from microorganisms taking up residence inside ancestral host cells. It was a completely wild idea for the era, and he just didn't have the molecular tools to prove it. Fast forward a bit to 1967, and we get a massive paradigm shift courtesy of Lynn Margulis. Publishing under the name Lynn Sagan at the time, she released this landmark paper called On the Origin of Mitosoming Cells. And in it, she formally proposed that fundamental cellular structures, like mitochondria, originated through successive ancient events involving formerly free-living prokaryotes.
Margulis championed what eventually revolutionized biology, the endosymbiotic theory. Now, to be perfectly clear, and, true to the scientific process, not every single detail of her original hypothesis stood the test of time. Actually, her ideas about the evolutionary origin of things like eukaryotic flagella, those didn't pan out, but her central, staggering insight, this whole concept of an irreversible partnership between an ancient host cell and a free-living bacterium, was profoundly correct. The theory suggests this beautiful, almost unimaginable ancient event. Instead of digesting a swallowed bacterium for food, the host cell entered into a permanent, mutually beneficial relationship with it. It didn't destroy the invader, it gave it a permanent home. And today, modern research has handed us an absolute biological smoking gun to back this all up. We're not just talking about one strange coincidence, it's an avalanche of evidence spanning multiple disciplines. Let's look at the physical structure first. Mitochondria have a double membrane.
which is exactly what you'd expect to see if one cell enveloped and swallowed another one whole billions of years ago. Then, look at the genetics. They hold their own completely distinct genome, operating totally separate from the human DNA sitting in your cell's nucleus. And if you trace the family tree of that mitochondrial genome, its closest evolutionary relative isn't human at all. It's the alpha proteobacteria lineage. Plus, as we just saw with that antibiotic mismatch, they construct their own independent ribosomes and RNAs. And consider how they behave. Your cells don't build new mitochondria from scratch. No, existing mitochondria proliferate by dividing on their own, very much like a bacterial colony growing. Their inner membrane even contains a specialized lipid called cardiolipin, which perfectly mirrors bacterial energy membranes. And perhaps most incredibly, over millions of years there's been extensive endosymbiotic gene transfer. Ancestral bacterial genes have actually relocated right into our own human nuclear genome, basically locking this bizarre ancient partnership in forever.
Because of this massive amount of overwhelming morphological, genomic, and biochemical proof, the origin of mitochondria long ago graduated from being just some intriguing hypothesis. I mean, it didn't gain acceptance simply because it was an elegant story, but because a massive array of independent, rigorous observations all pointed directly toward the exact same spectacular conclusion. Today, the endosymbiotic origin of mitochondria is literally one of the most rigorously supported foundational principles of modern evolutionary and cell biology. While researchers, are still mapping out the exact sequence of ancient events and the precise identity of the ancestral host, the central marvel remains entirely undisputed. The mitochondria powering your heart, your lungs, and your brain right now, they are, quite literally, domesticated bacteria.
And this perfectly loops back to why your specific genetics actually matter at the pharmacy. As our source material so brilliantly puts it, evolution does not disappear. It leaves enduring signatures in cellular structure, molecular pathways, and even the clinical characteristics observed in individual patients. The bacterial ancestry of your mitochondria is not merely some abstract evolutionary curiosity reserved for deep discussions in academia. It's a live variable in your healthcare today. That rare but utterly devastating reaction to aminoglycoside antibiotics is a stark, powerful reminder that ancient evolutionary history is alive inside you, and it is actively steering modern medical outcomes in ways we are only just beginning to fully appreciate.
So, we're going to wrap up this explainer by leaving you to just ponder this incredible reality. You are not entirely human, at least not in the way we traditionally define it. Your very ability to hear my voice right now, to move your eyes, to think about these complex concepts, it all relies completely on billions of ancient microscopic bacterial partnerships generating energy inside every single one of your cells. Knowing this, how much of your own body is actually made up of ancient non-human partnerships? It definitely changes the way you look at a simple antibiotic, doesn't it? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating medical mystery with me today, and keep questioning the incredible mechanics of the world inside you.